There you go, Johnny Be Good, the song that was shot into outer space as part of the Voyager mission. You're listening to The Art Movement, and I know that most of us will not be lucky enough to ever experience space travel firsthand. But a fascinating experience that we can have here on Earth is visiting museums. Simply put, I think we have all realized by now that the virtual world cannot replace the pricelessness of encountering artworks in the flesh, so to speak. Of course, I have stated in previous episodes that these are difficult times for art galleries and museums. Many of them around the world have had to close their doors since the outbreak. This has caused great financial strains, and simply put, many will not survive these strains. Over the past weeks, I talked about my trips to various museums in Prague, and I understand the challenges that museums and galleries are faced with in reopening. It's not easy. But recently I heard a story that I thought was a bit odd and interesting enough to share here with you. Reportedly, a visitor at the Museo Antonio Canova in Possagno, Italy, damaged a plaster model of a 19th century sculpture while trying to take a selfie with the artwork. Apparently this visitor sat on the work, causing two of its toes to break off. The model that was damaged corresponds to a pretty important marble sculpture by Antonio Canova, which depicts Napoleon Bonaparte's sister Pauline posing as Venus, the Roman goddess of love. Now, the museum plans to restore the work, and the visitor was identified, and after reading that he had made the news, he offered to pay for restorations. I can only imagine how mortified he must have felt, really. But I'm not going to be a real boomer about it and start saying that this is another story that shows how the newer technologies have helped the spread of ignorance and bad manners. I know that's kind of the popular narrative, but I don't actually believe that at all. I think technology has done more good than harm for the arts, especially in terms of accessibility. But I will say that this strange little event does reflect a lot of how people experience museums. Not so much about an inability of living in the moment, but making that moment as appealing to our friends on social media as possible. I don't see anything wrong with using artworks and integrating them in the stories that we tell about ourselves on social media, because that's essentially what most of us do on social media. We write the stories of our own lives, how we want to be perceived. That's what we project, whether we want to or not. And I'm sure that most of us would never dream of sitting on a museum artwork, especially one from the 19th century. But what I thought was also interesting about this whole affair is that, especially for the past weeks, we have been hearing a lot about monuments and statues being damaged everywhere as a result of outrage and as a form of protest. I've even talked about it in the past, and there's a clip from an earlier episode of this show about it on my YouTube channel, which you can find by searching my name, Matt Micucci. My second name is spelled Micucci. And so something like what happened to the Canova model reminds us that artworks obviously can be and often are damaged in other ways because of carelessness, ignorance, and just a general lack of respect. And to me, this is another story that shows just how vulnerable and even fragile cultural heritage really is.